Just getting settled.
You look comfortable.
The floor is actually pretty comfy. It's nice. It's soft. It's squishy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to More Than Friends Podcast, episode 4, right? Jesus, I can't believe this is our 4th week.
We've been doing this for a month.
Yeah, like, a month doesn't sound like a long time, but, like, we haven't missed one yet, and I'm pretty proud of ourselves.
We've consistently done this for a month.
Because, I mean, I'm someone who, if I take a shit or something and it's bad enough, I'll just cancel the whole plan for the whole week. So, it's pretty miraculous that my body allowed me to do this.
So you haven't had a bad shit, or you've just
plowed
through it?
I think the latter. That's depressing. Shit. What a great way to start the show.
Well, it is a shit show after all.
How are you doing today, Steven? We got up really early today.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Well,
I'm extremely tired.
Well, you'll sleep when you're dead. That's true. My grandma always used to say that to me.
Unless there's an afterlife.
Oh, okay.
Then you'll just be even more tired.
Do you think your tiredness carries over?
I hope not.
Because you know how in, like, games, I know this isn't the gaming show, but in games, like, if there's a second iteration, some of your stuff carries over. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, if there is an afterlife, your tiredness and all of the, like, shitty things you have, like you're afraid of snakes or whatever, hopefully that doesn't carry over, because that would be
I think
useless.
It might carry over. I mean, explain ghosts. Like, if there's a ghost in the afterlife, they're still roaming the same halls, and they're still like, oh, my life
I wonder
sucks.
what ghosts are afraid of.
Moving on.
We didn't introduce ourselves. I'm Joseph.
I'm Steven.
I hope everybody has had a wonderful week. I think our week has been fantastic. I got some extra sleep because I didn't go to work yesterday, and I was supposed to, but I didn't. And I think if you're ever in a bad spot, that's the key. Just don't go to work that day, and you'll feel better.
Or sleep.
Well, that's what I did.
Or quit your job.
Yeah. I was thinking of quitting my job.
Are you gonna?
I don't know. It's getting bad. I think maybe I'm gonna look for something else, but for the time being, just working there less will solve a lot of my problems. But I mean, the money situation is just a nightmare. It's real bad.
No, I feel that.
I'm gonna have to start working on the corner. Only I don't think I'd get any customers. So
I sell my body.
So you think there's a market for little brown boys like me?
Oh yeah.
You think someone will like me?
Oh yeah.
Do you think I would like them back?
No.
I mean, it would be nice if I liked them back.
Well, I mean, you can't.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
Well, see, prostitution now, prostitution's been on my mind because I just showed one of my episodes of the show I'm making, which has been like a year and a half in the making, and we have not really put anything out. But the first episode is about prostitution, and at the time, I remember, because we made that episode like a year ago. I remember at the time I was feeling very passionately about prostitution, being for it. And I don't know, I think the person I was dating at the time or whatever was giving me, I can't remember, but I was getting some pushback from someone in my life. And so that piece is kind of almost like a fuck you to them. Like, you should definitely be able to sell your body on the streets in exchange for money, as long as it's consensual.
I mean, I don't think it should actually be necessarily on the streets.
Oh yeah.
But I do think that people should be able to sell their body, and mostly because it's their body. Like, if they want to make a buck by using their body, that's fine. And there's nothing inherently wrong with sex. And what's nice about if it were legal, since we're getting into this topic.
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't really trying to. I don't know. I was just saying that I watched the episode of my thing today, and then it reminded me of prostitution.
Well,
so.
Still, since it would be legal, it could be regulated, and then it could be more safe. Since prostitution is illegal, if a woman or a man who sells their body in that way, if they run into any problems, they can't really report it to somebody without risking getting in trouble themselves.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of
that's why there's like this stereotype of, oh well, prostitutes are all like abused and they're treated
Some of
like
them
shit,
are.
and that's a lot of the argument against prostitution. But I actually think that the reason why they get abused and don't get help is because
they're afraid because it's illegal, and
exactly.
If it were legal, they would talk about it and blah blah blah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with a lot of drugs. A lot of people, like just with an addiction in general, but especially with illegal drugs, they don't seek help because they feel like they're going to be criminalized as opposed to helped.
Hey, I need help. Oh, you were doing a thing you shouldn't do. Yeah, I know. That's why I need help. Well, you're just going to have to go to jail.
Well, you shouldn't have done it.
I know that now. I'm trying to fix it. If you could just give me the help. No, just immediately go to jail.
And then when people don't help people who are in that situation, then they keep reverting back to that thing. So that's why I'm always for helping instead of criminalizing. Instead of punishing somebody, we should help them to make it so that it's easier for them to choose not to do the harmful thing.
I had a conversation with somebody. She was just like, so there's like feminists, but there's like the ones that people, they're like, don't be like that, like the like bad kind of, the ones that give feminists a bad name, like that are just annoying, and like it was like one of those. And we were talking about porn, and she basically said that like, I said I think porn is great. I mean, if you want that to be your job and it's consensual. And she said, no woman who is in porn is doing it with consent. And
that's not true.
And I said, that's not true. They don't fucking put a gun to their, like they willingly go up and they have to sign a bunch of documents probably. And like, of course it's consensual. She's like, no, they're messed up in the head. And that's not, like, because we live in a society where porn is okay, they're brainwashed into thinking that it's okay. And I said, you could say that about anything then.
That's insulting to people who choose to do that because, like, especially with, like, I have friends who are female who have, done sexual things for money, like recording or sending photos or anything like that. And to say that they're essentially either retarded, which is what she was saying, and I hate to say, like, such a harsh word, but that's basically what she means.
Yeah.
Or that they're sick and need help. I don't like that.
Yeah, she said.
I don't like that.
She said, despite the women willingly going there, because we're in a society that condones porn, that brainwashes them.
I don't think we're in a society that condones porn, and I think that she's reflective of that. I think she's very reflective of that.
And so that's the kind of like feminist that gives other feminists like you and I a bad name. Because not everybody is like that, but she's kind of an extreme. And you could say that about a lot of extremes, a lot of organizations or a lot of groups of people who maybe take their beliefs to an extreme and make it bad for the other people who are just trying to do a nice thing or, have a positive community. So, yeah, when I was talking with her, I'm like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. No, thank you. But
was that how you got out of it? You were just like, okay, no.
Well, I was just like, it was like a long discuss, like hours long. It was through text too, which isn't helpful. But, well, she was like respectful, I guess, but totally wrong. Absolutely, totally wrong. And she was basically trying to make me feel like shit for watching porn, which is ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. But on the topic of porn, I do think that starting watching porn at such a young age could be detrimental to one's mental health because it may give someone an unrealistic expectation of what sex may be. And if your only knowledge of what sex is through like some hardcore porn or some sort of, over the top porn that you're watching, and then you go into a sexual experience thinking it's like that, that's probably not going to turn out great unless you by chance get matched with somebody who also feels that way.
Well, I would say that part of the reason why a lot of people have unrealistic expectations when it comes not just to sex, but with relationships in general, because they have not just exposure to these things. I don't think the exposure is necessarily bad, but I think it's the lack of diverse exposure. And what I mean by that is, specifically with relationships, when we are children, we don't typically have conversations, open and honest conversations about relationships, like loving romantic relationships, when we're told about them.
Do you mean
as children?
Do you mean we don't have them with our parents, or we just don't have them in general?
With our parents.
Okay.
So all of that conversation, quote unquote, involves things that we see in stories and then our childish interpretations of them. So things like fairy tales or Disney movies or romantic comedies.
Right.
And those are very those are not diverse at all. They follow the same
Literally
exact kind
just
of thing.
Yeah,
and
you get rescued by the prince. You fall in love. He's your knight in shining armor.
And those are damaging to both boys and girls. I feel like because they represent women as being the
victim,
the helpless.
Yeah, they don't know how to do anything.
Who's just waiting for somebody to sweep them off of their feet. And then it shows the male, the boy, as the one that has to be capable and has to take care of these things. And when you're younger and seeing that and growing up, and you realize, oh well, as a boy, if you realize, oh well, I'm not necessarily this jack of all trades. I can't do all of these things. I'm not even particularly strong. It can lead them to feel very bad about themselves,
inferior,
yeah, and that's honestly and as much as I hate to use this phrase as well, but I think that's often part of what people are referring to when they say fragile masculinity, because we have these interesting standards, and whenever something gives the impression that we are not masculine, it scares a lot of people. It scares a lot of men, and that's why they get so aggressive or offended when anything reminds them of the minute chance that they could possibly not be the knight in shining armor.
Yeah.
And then the opposite is true of women in these scenarios, because oftentimes they might feel guilty about wanting to be ambitious and wanting to follow their own goals, or not wanting to sit and wait and twiddle their thumbs for someone to just come and do everything for them. And it's... I know that this sounds kind of like it's an exaggeration, but I don't think it is, especially when we're not having these conversations. And when you translate that to sexual expectations, especially when like a child watches, like a lot of kids, like in my generation, a lot of people in my age group, their first like sexual thing that they saw was like the sex scene in Titanic. And
that's actually a good point.
Like seriously, and it, for that to be the starting point for a conversation,
that's fucked up.
And for that to be the only, like for a long time, that was like the only impression that I had of not just a romantic relationship, but also, which by the way was shrouded in mystery and lies, and secrecy, but also for that to be the only example of a loving relationship, which again was in secret. They were in a place where they weren't allowed to be. It had these like these ideas and these connotations of negativity or like shadiness, I guess. And while it may or may not have been thematically interesting, I don't think it was, I don't think that's a good
representation.
Yeah. And like, it's not that was a bad representation by itself. I don't think anything is a good representation by itself, but that's the point. When people are only exposed to one type of narrative or one type of discussion, then they miss out on understanding all of these different things.
Yeah, because I think somebody, say you do have sex like they do in porn with your partner, that's awesome. I mean, if you both are talking about it and you both understand that you're both okay with it, that's awesome. But I mean, just going into it expecting that without the other person knowing, that's really bad. But so I've discovered that obviously sex is something that a lot of people get uncomfortable immediately with. I don't know how to fix it really. I guess just talk about it. But
yeah, talk about it.
But I have had fewer problems after just openly saying, "Hey, just letting you know, I'm into this. Anything of that? Does any of that interest you? Oh, well, this is cool. I like that. Not really into that. Not really into this. I like this. So if we could try that, okay." And then we can kind of work something out.
And that's how I've started to frame conversations about that.
And it's weird because the way I phrase it is almost like, "What do you want on your cheeseburger?" Like you know what I mean? Like it's so bizarre to talk about it like that.
I'll try the special sauce, but
but no onion. Absolutely no onion.
And, I'll try the lettuce, but if I don't like it, we can take it off.
I'll let you know immediately whether or not I like it. So like, and I've had, I don't think I've had one problem actually since doing that, because I know 100% that this person is not okay with this. So I'm not even gonna try it.
See, I've had a few problems, but it's mostly because, like, I'll say the things, like I'll give them the options for the burger, and I'll give them the options, but then they'll just be like, well, I was really looking for this burrito.
Oh, they don't even want a burger.
And then it's like, well, I would really like a burger. But then they they try to shove a burrito into my burger.
That would be really good, though.
It would be really good.
God.
As a food.
God.
But like, I'm just like, I don't want that burrito in my burger.
So, okay, at that point, though, if you guys can't reach a verbal consensus...
Yeah, we never meet.
I think you should just not do it. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I've never had a sexual interaction that has gone horribly after realizing that if you just talk about it, it'll go better. And usually, the person I talk about it with is, I don't know, it's not that they're not open to talking about it, but they're a little bit like, I don't know, like they it seems like they've never had that conversation before. But there have been a few people who, even before I ask them, they ask me first, and those are the people I gravitate more towards. Not because it means that they're sexual, but
because they tend to be more open,
and more
open
in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize that surrounding myself with people who are more open with stuff like that is just it's easier, number one, because I'm really bad at, like, you know how, like, when couples have an argument, like a stereotypical couple, again, something that is found in maybe a Disney movie or something, where it's the guy always. He's like, "Oh, are you mad at me?" to his girlfriend, and the girlfriend's like, "No," but she is mad at him though. But she says no, and he goes, "Okay," and then walks away, whatever. And then she fucking explodes, and she's like, "Why didn't you, whatever, do the thing you were supposed to do?" And he goes, "'Cause you said no." Well, you should know. You shouldn't have to ask. You should know. Like,
see, that idea,
that is just
that
so
whole thing,
counterintuitive.
And that's honestly, that's this whole romanticized vision that has been painted for relationships. Yeah. It's this idea that, oh, well, I'm just going to expect you to know everything that I want, and I'm going to expect you to because we're meant to be, you must be, like, linked with my soul.
Meant to be. Yeah.
Like an Avatar, where they take their hair and they connect it with the animal.
Oh my God. You've been on an Avatar kick. I think we talked about Avatar
because I went to
week.
Disney World, and I visited Pandora, and it was great.
I still don't think they're attractive. Anyhow.
I think the blue people are very attractive.
So,
but anyways, so
it's
that whole, like, fetishizing of a, like, fairy tale relationship, and whenever it doesn't match reality, people get pissed. Like, people get very upset. They either get depressed and sad, or they get angry and offended. Yeah. And it's obnoxious when really the solution is just talk. Just say what's on your mind. If you don't know how to express it, then figure it out.
Yeah, like,
that's an internal problem,
it's
not an external
the other
problem.
person's job to know what you're thinking.
And that's not geared towards one person or another. It's geared towards everyone.
Yeah, right.
And that's something that I don't even think is necessary just for relationships, but, like, across the board.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, especially, like, the workplace. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Because people always they're afraid that they're going to hurt people's feelings, when really it hurts more when there's, like, this like tiny tension building
of little misunderstandings. Yeah. So I think then one common theme we can draw from all this is that communication is absolutely vital.
Yes.
To not only sexual relationships, romantic relationships, but just relationships in general. And I don't know why people are so afraid of it. It seems like people, like, I don't know why they would be, but it seems like people are afraid of communicating with one another, or they don't know how. I don't know. But after having discovered myself, I realized that I feel like I'm particularly good at communicating, like, more so than others, at least, comparatively speaking. And I've just had fewer misunderstandings because I'm just blatantly just this, and this. Now, what do you think? Oh, I don't know. Okay, then if you don't know, come back to me when you know.
The only thing that sucks, though, because I like to think the same about myself, but the only thing that sucks, though, is a lot of people are not as good at communicating. And I have this problem where I don't want to just be like, all right, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I take the more, like, I guess, I don't want to say patient, but I'm going to say patient. I'm like, I'll sit there and I'll like slowly try to chisel away.
Is that worth your time though? I mean,
I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
It could be, right? Like that person could end up being someone you become really close to, or somebody who's really important in your life. But I mean, statistically, it's probably not worth your time.
I like to think that it's helpful for them, but also helpful for our interaction as well. Because like I could easily just like push somebody away and like just discount that whole scenario and just go to another one.
Yeah.
Which I guess would be fine in the grand scheme of things, but I don't know. I feel like everybody has something to bring to the table, and I would not want to miss out on that. Like I have a fear of missing out, I guess, and so I would want to try to see if I can pull that out of that.
Yeah.
And this is not like a relationship or sexual way, but like in just like a general sense.
Well, and one thing that is sad there is that say there is a person who totally, you know, has an awesome story to tell or is somebody who could be important to you, and like say you don't give them the time or you don't chisel away because maybe they're not the best communicator, and then you just move on, well, then you missed out on an awesome person. So I guess it's hard to gauge when to give someone your time and when not to, but...
Well, knowing when to stop, I think, is extremely important.
Yes.
Like that... I've seen people waste, so myself included.
Yeah.
I've seen people waste so much of their time on someone that is just adamant to not be good.
Yeah.
At
being compatible.
Well, I mean, so like, I guess in the grand scheme of things, the whole idea here is understanding. It's understanding of other people, whether you agree or not. Like you said, that you had like a few hours worth of a conversation with this person that you already knew you disagreed with, but you communicated back and forth.
Yeah, and she was civil, so that was nice.
And then you decided that there was nothing that could be done to change her mind, and she probably decided mutually, and so the conversation ended. But
I hate that she thinks I'm fucked up in the head. Like that's just like not. That's so off. Like that.
Well, that's usually the point in which this kind of thing stops.
Yeah.
Is when you're trying to create an understanding and people just aren't willing to understand, and instead it devolves into this almost name calling or dehumanizing or like lowering somebody else.
See that's not useful.
And that's a tactic that it sounds like they used, which is lame. But once that starts happening, that's when I say it's not worth your time. And like in any situation, I guess, if there's any kind of like toxicity or harmfulness going on in a conversation, then that's when it becomes that's when I say it's not worth your time. But if that's not there, then by all means I would say chisel away.
Now it seems like you're giving, well, I was going to say you're giving both people too much credit, because a lot of times maybe one person is only one person is aware that there's toxicity, and the other person totally thinks that everything's fine. So like, what do you do in that scenario where, yes, there's a clear problem there, but one is oblivious to it because, I don't know, he's stupid, or maybe he's not stupid, I don't know, but like, then you kind of run into a weird thing, because then out of the blue one person goes, hey, I can't do this anymore, you're toxic, blah 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 blah, and the other person's like, holy shit, I didn't know. I mean, that's kind of a tough spot to be in.
Well, I mean, in most cases, if there is toxicity, is that a word, toxicity?
Yes, it's actually the name of one of my favorite System of a Down records, and it's a fantastic record. It came out in 2001. You should definitely give it a listen if you like that kind of music. So yes, coined by System of a Down, toxicity is a word.
Coined by System of a Down?
They coined it. They made that word up.
I don't know if I believe that. But
I'm a metal historian. I know these things.
So, anyways, I think in a situation in which there's toxicity involved, it's easy to decide the intentions of the other person when you bring it to their attention that they are being toxic or that they're being harmful. And if they do not express an apology or a change in their like methods, which would show empathy, which would show that they care enough, then that means that they want to harm as opposed to not harm.
Well, and just to preface, they may not be harming. They may be doing something that actually is morally good. But the point is, if you perceive it as harmful, then still you're not compatible, right? Like, for example, say the person who feels like the other person is being toxic towards them is like a drug user, and the other person is like always hounding them. You gotta quit doing drugs. You gotta quit doing drugs. The drug user may perceive them as being annoying or toxic towards them, when really the person's just trying to get them to stop doing drugs.
Well, this is all within an individual's subjective context.
So the point, though, is that regardless of whether or not the person is toxic or not, still, there's not compatibility there.
Yes.
So, and that's the main point, and that's probably a good indication that you guys should probably separate.
And actually, this is interesting that this quickly turned into like a self-help therapy session or something.
I don't know how we started. I think I asked you how you were doing, and then we started, hey, hookers are weird.
How are you doing? Hookers are weird. Let's talk about how to improve your individual lives. Ultimately, I think it's important for everyone to be aware of the fact that they should only be obligated to themselves, or they should only be expected to be obligated to themselves. Nobody owes anyone anything.
Keep going. It's beautiful. I have a whole thing on this. Keep going.
Nobody owes anyone anything, and at the end of the day, we should always be mindful of our own personal goals, whatever they may be. It doesn't matter if I agree with them, because I'm not you. And it doesn't matter if you agree with my goals, because you're not me. Luckily, our goals actually tend to
that's
match
why
pretty
we
well.
Started a business together.
But and we're basically the same person. But as long as you are making decisions in your life that you can personally jive with, then that's fine. And that's what I mean by, like, if something is toxic, quote unquote, it's within the context of you and your goals and your personal, admirations. So, like, I don't want to put any, like, specific right and wrong or black and white onto this thing, because it should be decided by the individual.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that heads will not butt together, and that doesn't mean that people won't agree, or that people will agree. But what that does mean is that you can easily assess any situation by just thinking about your own personal goals and your own personal values, and deciding if something or someone or a situation or a job or a daily habit is pro that, is for your personal goals and values, or against. Is it harming it, or is it helping it? And then go from there. And just taking every little thing in your life and asking yourself that question: is this more positive, or is this more negative? And then just slowly trimming away until you have a life that is representative of you entirely. I think that's kind of like the secret to success, or at least happiness, which I would say is success.
Yeah.
But yeah.
To the point of how you were talking about, like, nobody owes you anything, that kind of thing. In a lot of relationships, like romantic relationships, that at least like a traditional, if you were to just pick a random couple out in the United States, I feel like they would probably feel like they owe each other something, where, one person may say, oh, you owe your life to me. I mean, even in like marriage vows, it's like,
yeah, and people feel so betrayed when somebody makes a personal decision in a relationship.
Right, yeah. And so, it could be something as complex as, cheating on your partner. Like, that can get pretty messy and weird. Or just something as simple as you decided to watch a football game instead of going out to eat with your wife's sister. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, like, it can be a minor thing or something really complicated. But either way, since the couple may have this perception that you're supposed to devote your entire life to the other person, that can cause a lot of problems.
And I would say that is both harmful and abusive. To be in that kind of a scenario. Now, if somebody wants to devote their entire life to somebody, and if the other person wants that person to devote their life to that person, to them, then by all means, go for it. If it jives with your personal values and goals, and if you together mesh and that works out for you two, or 3 or 7, not 4 and 5 and 6,
Just 3 and 7.
2, 3, and 7, then by all means do it. But if it gets to the point where they are consistently choosing to watch football instead of go out to eat with their wife's sister,
That was just an example. I don't know.
If they're consistently making that decision and it's consistently making you angry and nobody wants to compromise, that's a sign that something shouldn't be happening. That's a sign that you don't jive. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you should remove each other from each other's lives. It just means, hey, maybe I shouldn't expect you to not watch the football game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I shouldn't expect you to
go out to eat with my sister.
Yeah, like all of these things. Maybe I shouldn't expect these things, and maybe you can either go do your own thing and just not hold so much value to that and not take it personally, or think about the positives with that relationship or with this person and focus on those. And that doesn't mean that you have to be in a relationship. That doesn't mean that you have to be married. That doesn't mean that you have to even live in the same household. But you can keep the positive sides without the negative sides by just having an open communication. And on a similar note, if there's ever an ultimatum, if there's ever if you like this positive aspect of me in your life, then you're gonna have to put up with this negative thing. No, you don't have to put up with that. At that point, you remove them from your life.
Yeah.
Ultimatums, that is not friendship. That is not love. Ultimatums are born from fear, and fear is the opposite of love.
Yeah.
It's the cousin to hatred.
Cousin.
Yeah, it's an awful family.
Doesn't
the whole
sound
fear
good.
family.
Ugh.
Ultimatums are not born out of love.
Well,
and I think a lot of people get confused though, because those are ultimately comprised of personal insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
Well, and on that same topic, like say there's a couple and they have this understanding that, you know, they're going to be with each other for the rest of their lives, blah, 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 blah. If you want to do that, that's awesome. But in the partnership I have with my significant other right now, I openly said, hey, if there's someone that's better than me for you, go do that. Like, please. I don't want you to settle for me. Like, if I'm not good enough or whatever, like if I'm not the thing you need, go do that. And a lot of people never in a million years would say that. They'd be like, nope, even if there's someone you like better, you still got to stay with me.
I don't want you to leave.
Yeah.
I'm going to play these mind games in order to keep you. And I was that person.
On which end?
On the end of, I don't want you to leave. I'm going to play these mind games to get you to stay.
Yeah.
I was on the I'm afraid and I don't want to lose you.
Mm-hmm.
But then this magical thing happened and I realized that it was ridiculous. And that is not nice. Like, that is the opposite of nice.
Yeah.
And it's controlling, and it's just
because ultimately you come first. Like, you're living your life for you.
You, the subjective you, the listener.
You. So, yes, we're not saying to not compromise. I mean, I think compromise is important, but if the compromise is hurting you more than it's not, the sort of more trouble than it's worth, or is it worth the trouble, that kind of thing, then you should not do it. If it goes against the thing that even if your thing is something that is, objectively bad, you should still do that thing, and not do something that somebody else wants you to do just to compromise or whatever, just to please
exactly.
them,
And that does not just apply to relationships.
Right.
Again, just like with all of this, if there's a job that you're doing, if the cons outweigh the pros, if you want to kill yourself while working at this job, and even though you get paid enough money to support yourself, if you want to kill yourself, then why would you even want to support yourself in the first place?
Right.
If the cons outweigh the pros, then stop it. Mm-hmm. You owe it to yourself to stop it, and go do something else. Yeah. And I know that sometimes people don't have the luxury of choice. I understand that. And I understand that there is a certain privilege to being able to say, I'm going to just remove all these things that I don't want in my life. But also, we are not helpless in life. It's a combination of things. Not to say that there aren't those that are oppressed and that are more or less helpless than others, but I do think that we have the ability to make changes in our life, big and small, that can have a dramatic positive effect. And no matter what your situation is. Even just like, and sometimes I do this, and then I get depressed, but I just look around my room and I look at the things that I have and I'm like, okay, what is this adding to my life? Should I get rid of this? And oftentimes I keep the thing because I'm emotionally attached to it and it ends up destroying me.
You start crying.
And I start crying. But again, with the slowly chipping away, which I guess is my method, slowly I've been chipping away, and moving into a new place has helped.
Yeah, really.
But now it's like I can quickly realize what I consider to be the necessities. Like when I first moved into to the apartment, like the first week that I spent here, I loaded up my car with, and I quote, only the necessities. And what I had was the TV, my PlayStation 4, and a fuzzy blanket, and a pillow.
But I think
And that was it.
I would argue that that's you. I think that's you. I don't know if you're trying to say that that's not you, but I think that's you. Like, video games, that's you. And, I mean...
And a fuzzy blanket.
You're always complaining that you're cold. So,
there we go.
That's you. So, I don't think that's unfair that those are the things you brought. That's probably...
I mean, and I brought my wallet.
Yeah.
I didn't even bring a change of clothes, though. I would drive home to change my clothes.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Because I just didn't think about it. Yeah, those are the things that I want in my life.
And I think all of this discussion here that we've got...
And my cell phone.
Well, yeah, you need your cell phone. All of this discussion here that we've got is kind of what More Than Friends is about, I think, in that we want to encourage people to be themselves and to be okay with communicating about who they are. Whether it's good or bad, or at least, whether they have traits that are good or bad.
Whether we think it's good or bad.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I've only been here 25 years, almost 25 years, but I feel like that's a good enough time to make the assessment that a lot of people could be happier if they were to just communicate a little bit better.
Yeah.
I don't think that's unfair. I don't think that's arrogant to say that. I think that's a fact, really. And at More Than Friends, we want to bring together a family that encourages one another to be open, and we don't put people down for having weird sexual fetishes, or we don't put people down for liking a specific kind of music, and we don't put people down for liking a game that everybody hates. Because that's what makes people not want to talk. When they know, oh, I'm going to say the thing and they're just going to give me a hard time, so I might as well, blah, blah, blah. And then they don't even, whatever, they can't enjoy the thing they like. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if just that people are afraid of it, or when parents are raising their kids, they just say, okay, we don't talk about this, we don't talk about this, and we don't talk about this. But I think everything should be talked about. And
yes.
And on a more personal note, I don't know if you feel about this way, but I think everything should be joked about too. I think if it's worth talking about, it's worth joking about. And that's something that can kind of step on a lot of people's toes.
I'm not entirely sure if I agree with you.
Well, and that's why I said
that's fine.
But the reason I think that is because since so many people are uncomfortable by talking about certain topics, introducing it as a joke kind of breaks the ice and kind of lightens the mood and makes people more willing to talk about uncomfortable things. Like, that's why a lot of my jokes are maybe perceived as offensive or whatever. Like, they could be sexual in nature, or just, I don't know, maybe something that covers race or things that people kind of don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. But to me, since I'm so open with that kind of thing, when joking about it, some people may just look at it and go, oh, he's an asshole, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But other people may be like, okay, I kind of get it. And while I don't find it funny, now at least I can talk about it, because at least I'm in a more, the mood has been lightened and I can talk about it easier.
See, I honestly think I'm perfectly fine with comedy being used as a way to open up the conversation for uncomfortable topics. The only way that I do not like comedy is when a person or a group of people become the butt end of the joke. when it's negative towards somebody and when you're laughing at somebody and not with somebody, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah,
and that's why I was like, I don't know if I agree.
Well, but
in that sense.
but it's hard to. That's where sort of the trouble is, because it's hard. Like, okay, for example, say you're making a race kind of joke. Well, to me, I think that's funny. Like, even if somebody's making fun of my race, I think that's funny. So to your point, there,
well, I think
I'm the butt of the joke.
I think the only time that it's
know.
okay. This is, of course, my opinion.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, the only time that it's okay if there is somebody who is the butt end of the joke is when it is yourself. That is, like, I feel like the only people who should make racist jokes are people who are making fun of their own race. I think because otherwise it's distasteful, really. And I think that we can always remain open and critical of an entire group of people, but we should not demean or dehumanize a group of people unless it is a self-inflicted dehumanization. Oddly enough, I think I'm more lenient when it comes to, I guess, quote unquote offensive humor. I think I'm a bit more lenient the more well it's done. Like,
yeah.
The better that a joke is written, the more offensive I will allow it to be before I get upset. Well, but if somebody is just making this canned joke about black people,
or Asians have small dicks, like something like
that,
that,
like that kind of thing, no, there's no excuse for that, because that is racist, and that is just pushing forward this racist agenda.
Yeah, it's tough though, because like if you just straight up say, like, this is your joke, Asians have small dicks, like, that's not really, like, you're not really enlightening anybody with that, right? But if a white person has a really funny joke about Asians, but it's either they're not Asian, I think they should. I would hate to see that joke go untold because they're not that thing. You know what I'm saying?
Whether or not it offends me, though, that doesn't give me a right to tell them that they can't say it.
Yeah.
The only time that speech is
that's important,
illegal.
what you just said.
Yep. Yeah. The only time that speech is illegal is if it's hate speech, and that's why I think it's important that when people are doing something that's offensive, that's inherently offensive, it should be clever.
Yeah.
It should be well thought out.
But then you run into an issue of,
or it should be true.
Yeah, exactly.
A true story about something that they experienced.
But like, as a person who loves the art of a joke, like, I dissect jokes. I know it's kind of weird, but like, I'll look at like the beats in the joke and like, oh, he used this word instead of this word, that's weird, and oh, he told it out of order, so it's weird or it's different. Like, I'm someone who looks into that, and I love a good joke, and I love, to your point, like a clever joke, but I just feel like somebody, regardless of if they're making fun of themselves or not, if they still have that awesome joke, they can do it in a maybe more tasteful way, which again is subjective, so it's hard to police, right? It's not just like, you shouldn't murder, right? Like, that's pretty obvious that you shouldn't murder, but like, telling a joke that, yeah, maybe could be perceived as offensive, but it's a really good joke. Like, where do you draw the line? And I'm with you. I'm totally with you that you should not intentionally try to hurt people. But I'm Hispanic, and I've heard some really funny, like, racist Hispanic jokes. I have. And I don't know what to do with that information. Because yes, to some people they may be offended. But some of it's really funny, and I don't know how to handle that, right? Like, what do I do? Am I racist? No, I'm not. But it's a tough spot as a lover of jokes and as someone who, I don't really get offended by stuff like that. But I get it that other people do. But does that mean that they can't tell their joke? Like, it's a tough spot.
It is tough. And I think that the best comedians are able to balance that.
Yeah.
And they're able to win people over, even the ones that may or may not agree with the punchline.
Yeah. And a lot of it too, like, some of the more like well-established comedians, if they make something, if they make a joke that is seemingly racist towards somebody, if you know that they're actually not racist, then that helps too, right? But if just some Joe Blow, just someone you don't know, just makes a racist joke, well, then you'd be like, yeah, that guy's a fucking racist asshole. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I also have like this weird problem with any artist that, like, I don't know, if you're putting out a message and you disagree with that message that you're putting out as an artist, without doing it in a way that makes it so that like you're critical of it, so like satire or if it's a parody,
you're saying they shouldn't.
Well, it's not that they shouldn't, but why are they doing that? Unless they just want to wreak havoc and cause chaos.
Some people just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah, but like, I mean, that I suppose that can be artful too, but like it, as an artist, why would you want to put something out there if it's potentially harmful even to your worldview, like even to your goals?
Yeah,
it seems like counterproductive and counterintuitive, and dangerous.
Yeah,
and very dangerous. And there are only two reasons that I can think of that someone would do that. And one reason is because they want to watch the world burn, in which case it does kind of go with their goals, in which case I guess do it. But the other way is for like financial reasons.
Yeah. Or they have maybe it's not financial. Maybe they have some other motivator that is like
some kind of a motivator, but oftentimes I think, especially in art,
financial. Yeah.
It's money. And it sucks. It really sucks because then you're put in a position where you have to put out this message that you probably disagree with, and for that to just be perpetuated, and for you to be one of the working cogs that's perpetuating it.
Yeah.
That's
why
that makes me uncomfortable.
Sure. Yeah.
It just seems like at that point you're lying.
Right.
And that's scary.
You're going against the more than friends message.
Yeah, because that would show that you are not confident enough in your ideas and your values that you wouldn't stand up for them.
That's why some of my favorite comedians that talk about, like, you know, in the example, like, they're white, but they're making a black sort of joke. The jokes they tell are ones that are more true, like that. That's why like it's awful what they're saying, but then the audience is like, well, like they go, because the story is true or whatever.
Yeah, and that's why I love true stories, because we have this saying, and it is that the truth cannot be offensive.
Yes, I love that saying.
And well, that's good, because Did I came up with that? One of us did.
I think it was both of us at the same time.
But the truth cannot be offensive, and if you're offended by the truth, then that's a you problem, because it's the truth.
And just so everybody knows what that means, that's not to say you shouldn't be offended. You can be offended, whatever. But for example, if you're like, this is an example I always give, like, if a mom is holding her baby, oh, is my baby cute? And you think the baby's not cute. Well, that's not a fact, because it's a subjective thing. But if you say, is my baby brown, and your baby is brown, and you say, yes, your baby is brown, and the mom gets offended, that's stupid, because the baby is brown. But if you say, yeah, your baby's hideous, well, since it's subjective, the mother can kind of be offended at that, because it's not a fact, right? That's the point.
And everything should be taken within context. Like, if every time that this mother walks into a room with her brown baby and everyone's like, oh, look at your brown baby, that is such a nice brown baby, and they just keep emphasizing the brown, then I think there's definitely grounds to be offended there, because they're emphasizing something that it should be completely irrelevant. However, something like, are you attracted to me? No.
No, I sure am not.
Getting upset over that. Now, I understand that some people could be self-conscious and everything about that, but there's an interesting thing with the phrase self-conscious because it involves the self, and that is not necessarily anybody else's fault. And whether or not somebody is attracted to you or not, you should have, and I know that this is ideal and not necessarily realistic, but it should ideally not have an effect on how you feel about yourself. Because it's just, oh, okay, this is one person who is not attracted to me. Out of 7 billion. And there's somebody that is attracted to everyone. Or everyone has a group of people that will be attracted to them.
But if you're someone who is a murderer and you ask someone, hey, did I murder somebody? And they go, yes, you did. And then the murderer gets upset. Well, what the fuck? You are a murderer. You murdered, right? So, like,
And on the topic of being offended, this is interesting. A lot of people get offended when people are offended.
Yeah.
I find that interesting because with the idea that the truth cannot be offensive, let's say that somebody says a thing, maybe they tell a joke, and the joke may or may not be well written, it may or may not be a true story, but it is a joke. One person laughs, another person doesn't. The person who laughs turns to the person who doesn't laugh, and they say, why aren't you laughing? And then they say, well, I find it offensive. And then the person who was laughing, they're now offended, and now like, they're mad.
Fuck you.
And they're like, oh, well, you're just stupid for being offended. Well, hold on. You're offended now.
Yeah. So the person who told the joke should be like, hey, fuck you. Why are you offended? and then it's just this vicious cycle.
But like it's just like there's nothing inherently wrong with somebody being offended as long as they don't try to control a situation in a harmful way. Like, I mean, nobody's forced to hear a joke unless you're literally like locked in a room and there's like megaphones or something and they're just screaming.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Jokes.
People like the term or the phrase being offended, they're like afraid of that. Like people, it's almost like an end all be all. If you're offended, then that's the end of the world. What's
interesting is I actually think that it's a good thing
to be offended.
To be offended, and the reason why I think it's a good thing to be offended is it shows that you have a certain set of beliefs and a certain set of values, and it reaffirms those beliefs and those values. It's basically a little signal that's reminding you, hey, this is the path that you should go on.
Mm-hmm. So if you're someone who is okay with being offended, does that mean that you want to be offended a lot?
No.
Okay.
No. What I
just
mean
wanted
is,
to be clear.
It's a matter of like reframing the scenario in which I'm offended. So like if I'm offended, then first and foremost I'm like, okay, why is this offensive to me?
Yeah, that's important.
And
a lot of people don't do that.
Exactly.
They stop right at I'm offended.
And they're just like, and
fucking
then
asshole,
they get mad, and then they try to like silence or shut someone up.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I ask myself, why am I offended by this thing? Then, when I find out why, I ask myself, what can I do about this?
Mm-hmm.
Are they allowed to do this thing that has offended me? Are they in the wrong? Am I in the wrong? And basically, I ask myself why I'm offended, and then I explore it further, and then I either remove myself from a scenario in which I'm going to be offended again. It basically steers my life in a direction that I'm more comfortable with and more happy with, or I turn it into a further justification for advocacy, where I'm like, okay, I genuinely believe that this thing is wrong, and so I'm going to do what I can to make sure that other people don't have to put up with this.
Or a third option is, say your initial response is that you're offended, but then you realize that they're right, whatever they said.
Well, that's the exploration, the explorative process, is when you're exploring, always be open to learn.
Yeah.
That's the middle step.
Because I remember times where I was offended, and ultimately I think I was wrong. Like the person who was offending me was right. But if I would have just stuck with my initial response of I'm offended, better move on, I might not be the person I am now, right? So like even something, I don't want to get too religious here, but like say you're somebody who is a religious person, and there's a person who is making anti-religious remarks. Well, if you're someone who is maybe meant to be someone who is non-religious, you could take those remarks and be like, why am I offended? Oh, because blah, 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 it goes against the Bible, blah, blah, blah. And then just go into this further analysis. And then maybe after that, you're like, oh, maybe that person, the thing they said actually makes sense. And now you're not a religious person. It doesn't have to be that deep. But that's an example that I was in, where I would hear some people, at that time when I was becoming non-religious, it was a lot of like science stuff. And they were saying things that are, anti-Bible about like evolution and things like that. And why am I offended? Analysis. Oh, they're right. I mean, it wasn't that clean cut, but now, I mean, look at who I am now, right? Like, so it's important to, when analyzing why something is offending you, to be like you said, to be open to maybe you're wrong.
And that involves, oftentimes, having a conversation with someone that you disagree with.
Full circle. Here we go.
And really having open and honest conversations without any fear of judgment or without any fear of just being treated differently, it can really be a freeing experience. And it can help you learn more about yourself and about others. And I personally believe that it dramatically increases the quality of life for everyone involved.
And on that note, one of the most important nights for me in terms of like this kind of development is that night when you and me and I don't know if we want to mention the names, but two of our friends were talking about our sexual fetishes. And one person in that group had a sort of unusual, I think, sexual fetish. And by unusual, I don't mean it's bad or it's not morally right. It's just not usual.
Just one that you don't
hear of often, right? And the reason that night was so important is because the way he talked about it was so open and with no remorse and no fear of what we were going to say to him, that it kind of instilled in me that, fuck it, yeah, talk about your thing, whatever. And I think embracing like the stuff you like and embracing who you are is kind of important. So stuff like that, a lot of people would not have had that conversation, or they would, but they would lie, right? And say, oh, I just like when a girl fucks me, like, whatever. So yeah, don't be afraid. I mean, it's easy for us to say, right? Because we've climbed that mountain and we've
and once you do it, it's great. It's like getting into a swimming pool, and it's like it's kind of chilly, but once you get past the testicles, it's fine. It's fine. Actually, I would say once you get past the nipples,
yeah, dude, because
comfortable.
Yeah, I think because the balls.
Yeah. Though
nipples for sure.
I've heard from a lot of people, once you get your head wet, then it's more comfortable. You gotta get your head wet, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
But anyways, once you get in the water, it feels great.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to get in the water.
And what helps is when you have awesome people around you who are saying, dude, just get in the water. It's shitty at first, but it'll be fine, and ultimately you'll be able to swim with us and have a good time.
Exactly. And that's why we want to always encourage you to either be that person, to be more than friends, or to surround yourself with more than friends, because that'll make that whole process easier. And actually, I'm gonna go a step further, and I'm gonna say that I'm gonna challenge you, the listener, to have an uncomfortable conversation with somebody who you're close to. So it can be your best friend, it can be your mom, it can be someone you're in a relationship with.
It can't be your dog.
Yeah, unless your dog can talk.
Yeah, if your dog can talk, absolutely.
And Jesus Christ, if your dog can talk,
we want to have you on the show.
Yeah, please bring your dog.
With the dog, yeah.
But have an uncomfortable conversation with somebody. Talk about something that you haven't told somebody before, or just like talk about something that makes you uncomfortable, and just see where it takes you. And as long as you are open and try not to judge the other person and go into it with kindness and empathy in mind, then I have a feeling that you're going to have a positive experience, and you'll come out either learning something about yourself or about the other person.
Yeah, I'm clapping to that. That's pretty good. I like that.
I'm gonna add
some clapping.
some big applause.
Insert
some
clapping
grand,
here. Yeah.
Like
okay.
a whole stadium of clapping.
A stadium. You think that was stadium worthy?
Yeah, I'm gonna find the stadium.
So
Clapping.
you think that about wraps it up for today?
I think so.
That got really that. I had all right. When just disclosure just for everybody, when we first started doing the shows, we would kind of have somewhat of an idea, but we've decided that if we just go into the show with no idea what we're going to talk about, a lot of times it feels more natural, and we just kind of we just make it work. So none of that was planned. Just saying.
Yeah, we had no structure.
We didn't even talk about that we don't have a structure. We just said, all right, let's just do a show.
We just recorded.
And I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think this might be my favorite episode so far.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
I know we
amazing.
only have 4, but this is 4th episode is my favorite. I think this is the one that I would share with people personally.
Well, I think you should. And also,
and you should too.
Yes,
listener.
Yeah, listener. God, you listeners out there, you should.
Why aren't you sharing our podcast? Share our podcast.
Well, it's because we don't freaking have it on iTunes yet.
We're working on it.
We're working on that.
Actually, on that note, just so that everybody knows, we're working on a lot of different things.
Yeah, we're not over here twiddling our thumbs. I didn't go to work yesterday, so I could get stuff done in my personal life, so that way I could have more time today and last night to work on stuff for this.
He spent the night at my apartment so that we could wake up early in the morning and work on business stuff all day.
We're getting shit done. Just give us a minute. It's tough.
But we're working on getting a website together. We're working on getting our podcast on iTunes. We are preparing everything, all of our final little things for the Cincinnati Comic Expo.
Next weekend, September 22nd, 23rd?
21st,
22nd.
The weekend of September 22nd.
The weekend of September 22nd, yeah.
I think 22nd is on the Saturday.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, so we're getting everything in order for that. We set up a More Than Friends business bank account today. That was exciting.
That was exciting,
So
yeah.
it's kind of official. So now we have our own little bank account.
With $5 in it because we're poor.
Basically.
I didn't eat today, by the way. Just letting everybody know. That's a lie. But yeah, so it's there's a lot of hurdles that we're trying to overcome, but so far I think we're doing. Not only are we doing well, I think we're doing way better than a lot of small businesses do when they first start out.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not financially, but we'll get there.
Well, yeah, but
we'll find out.
Nobody fucking opens a business and a month in is making profit. That's
true.
pretty unusual for that to happen. Unless you're a drug dealer.
Yeah, or a prostitute. Full circle.
Full circle. Where can people find you on the internet, Steven?
I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/midgetguy. I'm also on Snapchat. It's Midget Guy on there. MIDGETGUY on both of those.
If you want to email the show, it's bemorethanfriends@gmail.com or facebook.com/bemorethanfriends. And then for me, you can find me on basically every social media platform: Instagram, Twitter,
MySpace.
YouTube. MySpace. Oh my God.
Do you have a
Dude,
MySpace?
not recently, but a couple years ago, I looked at my MySpace that I had, and oh my God. I was offended.
Oh no!
I was offended at my old.
You should have
MySpace.
an open conversation with
my old go back in time. But anyway, you can find me on everything at Joseph Yaden, except on Facebook, joseph.yaden. So that has been episode 4 of the More Than Friends podcast. Stay tuned for the More Than Friends gaming podcast.
Ooh. That sounds spooky. I don't want it to be spooky.
It's not spooky.
Ooh!
I don't know why you did that. Why? Should we do a horror show too, so that way you can?
Ooh. Actually, that would be fun.
Telling horror stories. I'm so bad at horror stories.
Maybe they can be really bad horror stories. That could be the whole thing.
That could be good.
Just really, really awful.
Okay, let's get the ideas we've got already fleshed out, and then once we get that done, then we can do a horror show.
But yeah, so the gaming podcast. This podcast should be up on Thursday. Fingers crossed. Please let us be able to get it up on Thursday. So either Thursday or Friday this will be up, and then the MTF gaming podcast should be up on Friday. And I definitely think we can do it by Friday.
The gaming show?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So this one should be up on Thursday, and gaming podcast should be up on Friday. give it a listen. It'll be our first official gaming podcast, and we'll actually talk about video games the entire time. So yeah, it'll be great. And then also, just to reiterate, you can email us directly at bemorethanfriends@gmail.com, and you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/bemorethanfriends. You can message us directly on our Facebook site or page. You should tell us all about your uncomfortable conversations.
I would love to do an episode where we just tell the stories that people have told us of uncomfortable conversations that they had.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
And aside from that, also just send in anything that you want us to talk about on the show.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Just anything.
Yeah,
literally anything. But please have the uncomfortable conversations, because I'm curious to see how you guys do.
And I like knowing what other people classify as uncomfortable.
Yeah, it can be really telling.
Yeah, because what's uncomfortable to me is nowhere near what is uncomfortable to somebody else, right?
And it can show, just different people who live in different areas, like, just culturally, there's different things that make different people uncomfortable, or what's uncomfortable for a male, maybe not uncomfortable for a female, or vice versa. What's uncomfortable for a transgender individual an asexual individual.
So they're a plant.
No, asexual is just non-sexual.
Well, plants aren't sexual. I was opening up a can of worms. We're trying to close the show.
All right, anyways.
We'll continue the whether or not plants are sexual discussion on
to be continued on the MTF horror show. The sexual plant that may or may not be sexual.
Woo! Oh my god. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and remember to be more than friends.
Thank you.
I never know how to end the shows. Plants are totally not sexual.